What's a good start? Shabbos Baruch Hashem. In the closet over here. Soon we'll keep moving it forward. All right. Switch this to airplane mode. Oh wait. So. All right, Rabbosai, good morning. Shechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. What a schus to be able to get Maseches Temurah. Rabbosai, so again, I'll speak a moment about the Masechta, but just a thank you to all of our shir sponsors. To thank you to Uncle Mike Holtzman, our Talmud Torah sponsor for the month of Tammuz, Yashir Koach for your sponsorship. And thank you to Rabbi Larry and Flo Ziffer for dedicating the shir this morning and commemorating the yahrzeit of Flo's brother, David Moshe ben Eliezer Halevi. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshama will have an aliyah and the family in a chama. Thank you. And to thank Aaron and Alana Weinberg for dedicating the shiurim this week, a week of Daf Yomi learning, with gratitude and thanks to Hashem for the complete refuah for their son Yonatan Shai Weinberg 8 years ago. Yonatan, together with the entire Weinberg Mishpacha, should continue to be the beneficiaries of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's bracha. So with that, let's begin with Maseches Temurah. So I was thinking about this today, how auspicious it is that we begin this Masechta on Shivasar B'Tammuz. Why is that? So because, remember again, Maseches Temurah, as you can imagine, is about Temurah. Wonderful, right? Although again, like most Masechtas, we've already seen throughout our journeys in Shas, the names can sometimes be a little bit deceiving, but on a most basic level, the concept of Temurah, and again, we'll get into this, of course, represents the idea of swapping out sacrificial animals. And if a person has identified a particular animal as a karban, so there is a halacha that says, Lo yachlifenu v'lo yamir oso, lo ra b'tov, v'lo tov b'ra. Ultimately, again, if let's say, for example, I go ahead and set aside a particular animal as a karban, and then I find another animal, and I want to use that animal as the karban instead of the first. Whether the second animal is better than the first, worse than the first, the Torah says you are not permitted to go ahead and swap out the initial sacrificial animal for any replacement. Now, interestingly enough, as we will see, one of the interesting halachos over here is you're not allowed to do it, but yet if you do it, what's going to be the halacha? So it works. Both are kodesh. Both are kodesh. So of course, the most basic lesson in this is, what is Chosh Baruch Hu trying to teach us? So I understand why if I set aside let's say a superior animal, I can't go ahead and swap it out for an inferior animal. But why not the opposite? If I dedicated, right, or not dedicated, it's the wrong word. If I designated or consecrated, right, an inferior animal, I can't go ahead even and swap it out for a superior animal. So of course, a very important musar, which is sometimes in life, it's just important to stay the course. You know, a lot of times in life, we create for ourselves a goal or an aspiration, or I have a project I'm working on, and then I say, well, I should do it like this, or I should do it like this, or maybe I'll go like this, or I shouldn't do this, I should do this. And people spend a lifetime starting things and never finishing them. Because at the end of the day, oh no, this would be a better endeavor, or this would be a different endeavor, this is what I should be focusing on. Chosh Baruch Hu teaches us, when you start something, finish it. Finish it. There might be something better you're supposed to do. There might be some better way to do it, but sometimes it's just important to get the job done. There is a certain incredible aliyah that one experiences with accomplishment. And even if it's not the best of accomplishments, or it's not the accomplishment done in the best way, sometimes ultimately, it's just important that when you start out on something, finish it off. But I was thinking also that today being Shavasar B'Tammuz, so the concept of Temurah, means swapping one thing for another. So today we begin the period of the Bin HaMetzarim, the 3 weeks. We spoke about this yesterday in davening, we saw by the drasha, but the idea being that this represents a time of churban, a time of destruction. And I was thinking how incredible it is that we begin Maseches Temurah, which speaks about swapping or switching realities on the first day of Bin HaMetzarim. So we should be zocha that on the suchos of beginning Maseches Temurah Shevasar B'Tammuz, that Halavai HaKadosh Baruch Hu will do some permitted Temurah for us. We've had 2,000 years of Galus, 2,000 years without a Beis HaMikdash. Ribbon Shalom, it's time for Temurah. It's time to swap things, it's time to switch things around, it's time to replace the lot of Galus and diaspora with the reality of Geula, of Moshiach and the Beis HaMikdash. And I will say with that, let's begin. Hakol Mamirin. Everyone could do Temurah. Rashi says, so I will say, again, we'll talk about this lashon in just a moment. Everyone could do Temurah. Echad anoshim ve'echad anoshim. Men could do Temurah. Women could do Temurah. Now the Mishnah jumps in and says, by the way, lo sha'adam rashay lahamir. This does not mean that you should do Temurah, right? Because again, when it sounds like fun for the whole family, right? Hakol mamirin. Everybody could do Temurah. No, calm down. We're going to see why the Mishnah uses that lashon. So the Mishnah says, doesn't mean that you should do Temurah. Rather, ela shim himer mumar sofeges harboim. Rather, what it just means is that halacha l'maisa, if you did do Temurah, if you did swap out or swap in an unconsecrated animal to replace the animal that you had previously consecrated, the swap does work and you get malchus. Good. So we'll examine why the Mishnah uses this type of lashon. So I'll say, so again, I want to just point out, so remember, the Mishnah presupposes that we understand the concept of Temurah. For the simple idea, the Mishnah doesn't feel the need to really expound upon it, because remember, again, it is a mefurish pasuk in the Torah. The Torah itself tells me that halacha l'maaseh, if I've designated an animal as a karban, I should not go ahead and swap it for something else. If in fact I do swap it, the penalty is v'hayahu usmuraso kodesh l'Hashem. Both animals become consecrated. Now, of course, you understand, we're going to have to discuss what it means that both animals become consecrated. What does that mean? Both are consecrated, both are offered. Okay, that we'll see. Says the Gemara, Haguf Akasha. So now we'll say, so the Gemara goes back and speaks out the inherent problem with the verbiage of the Mishnah. Amrit hakoma mirin lechatchila. So ultimately, again, you said that everyone does Temurah. Everyone does Temurah. So we'll say what that sounds like is even lechatchila. Even lechatchila you can do Temurah. V'hader tani lo sha'adam rashay lahamir elashim himir mumar di'eved. So we'll say, so again, asks the Gemara the same question that the Mishnah itself had on itself. Hakol mamirin sounds like a lechatchila dika statement, which sounds like a bosa. The way it sounds like is what? Everyone can do Temurah. Everyone can do Temurah. Sounds like lechatchila. But then the Mishnah qualifies it and says, lo sha'adam rai lahamir elashim himir mumar. Then the Mishnah itself qualifies itself to say, not lechatchila you should do Temurah, but if you did do Temurah, it works. Di'eved. So the Gemara is supposed to say, so why would the Mishnah use a lashon of hakol mamirin that makes it sound like lechatchila Temurah is permitted, when that indeed, of course, is not chas v'shalom what the Mishnah means to say. The Tizbera, I have a bigger kasha. Hakol mamirin lechatchila adikashi l'cha masnisin tikshi l'cha kra dichsiv lo yachlifenu v'lo yamiro. So I will say, forget about the fact that the Mishnah doesn't make sense. The Mishnah seems to contradict a mefurish pasuk. The pasuk itself says lo yachlifenu v'lo yamiro. So Torah says you can't swap a sacrificial animal. You can't do Temurah. And yet what? The lashon of the Mishnah is hakol mamirin. So what's going on over here? Amar Yehuda hachi katani. So we'll say we're trying to figure out now, why would the Mishnah actively use a lashon? It says hachi katani. Yehuda says this is what the Mishnah means to say. Hakol matfisin b'temurah echad anoshim ve'echad noshim. So I will say, interestingly enough, what the Mishnah is coming to teach according to Rabbi Yehuda is Hakol comes to teach me that everyone has the power to affect Temurah, both men and women. Lo sha'adam rashoy lahamir. It doesn't chas v'shalom mean that somebody lechatchila should do Temurah. Rather, shem himir mumar v'sofek es harboim. So we'll say, so ultimately, again, what Rabbi Yehuda is coming along to say, and we'll expound on this a little bit later on, Hakol Mamirin is rather a more dramatic statement, ultimately, that Temurah works both for men and for women. So you're going to see the novelty in that ruling in just a little bit. That's what the Mishnah is coming to teach me. Hakol means everyone is subject to the halachos of Temurah, both men as well as women. We'll see the chiddush in that in just a little bit, and then the Mishnah goes on to qualify itself, not to say that chas v'shalom person lechatchila ultimately again should do Temurah, but rather if they did it, it works. And who is the they? The Hakol, comes to teach you that it's both men and women. To which the Gemara says, Hakol la'asuye mai. So who does Hakol come to include? La'asuye yoresh. Udlok Rabbi Yehuda. Both say comes to include a yoresh. So what's the yoresh case? Watch this. So Yaakov designates a carbon as a shlamim. Then what happens? Yaakov dies. His son Ruvain inherits him. Included in the estate is the shlamim. So remember again, the halacha is that Ruvain, the yoresh of his father, has an obligation to offer up any outstanding karbanos that his father may have designated. So we'll say, so now the Gemara is suggesting as follows: that when it says Hakol Mamirin comes to include even a yoresh. Even Ruvain, the inheritor, has the ability to affect Temurah, not in accordance with the view of Rabbi Yehuda. This time we learned in the Mishnah, Yoresh Somech, Yoresh Meimir, Div Rabbi Meir. So we'll say, remember, we actually saw this earlier. We saw this Gemara. Where did we see this? So let's do the Menachos, Erchen, good. So Yoresh Somech, Yoresh Meimir. So we'll say, so Div Rabbi Meir. Meir holds that a Yoresh does Smicha, and a Yoresh affects Temurah. Again, we will see that those two things are connected. Rabbi Yehuda says, Yoresh Eino Somech, the Yoresh Eino Meimir. Rabbi Yehuda says a Yoresh does not do smicha, and a Yoresh cannot affect Temurah. So let's analyze this. My time, Rabbi Yehuda, why does Rabbi Yehuda hold that a Yoresh does not do smicha, and a Yoresh does not do Temurah? So Yalev Tchilas Hektish, Misof Hektish. Rabbi Yehuda learns at the beginning of Hektish. Rabbi said the beginning of Hektish is actually a reference to Temurah. He learns at the beginning of Hektish Temurah from Sof Hektish from Smicha. How so? The Gemara says, Mas Sof Hektish Yoresh Eino Somech. Just like at the end of Hektish, a Yoresh does not do Smicha. We'll see Rabbi Yehuda gets that from Aftchilas Hektish Yoresh Eino Meimir. So we'll say, so as we're going to see, everyone seems to find a commonality between the bookends of this Hektish process. The bookends are Temurah and Smicha. Again, Temurah is called the beginning of Hektish Rabbi, because remember again, if you do Temurah, that's the beginning of that's the Makadosh, that's the beginning of the Hektish process. Rabbi Yehuda says we learn out the beginning of Hektish, i.e. Temurah, from Sof Hektish Smicha. And Rabbi Yehuda holds just as a Yoresh doesn't do Smicha, so too he doesn't go ahead. My Yoresh Eino Somech. So too a Yoresh does not do Temurah. Usmicha gufa min yalan. So where does Rabbi Yehuda know that a Yoresh does not do smicha? So watch this. So once remember again, the act of smicha is the act of where the owner places his hands on top of the carbon. So where does Rabbi Yehuda know that halacha l'maisa a Yoresh does not do smicha? So tlas karbano ksivi. Shabbos say ultimately Rabbi Yehuda says the pasuk says karbano. This is in the parsha of Shlamim. It says the word karbano, his offering, 3 times. Shabbos says here's what's very interesting about this. The word karbano is written in the possessive. Rabbi Yehuda as well as Rabbi Meir are both going to agree that word karbano tells me that certain things only apply to my carbon and do not apply to other people's karbanos. So Rabbi Yehuda darshans the word karbano, possessive, appears 3 times in the section of Shlamim to teach me 3 halachas. Chad karbano v'lo karbon ovikacham. So we'll say number one halacha l'maisa is that the din of smicha applies to my carbon and not to the carbon of a non-Jew. So we'll say if a non-Jew brings a carbon as he can, a non-Jew can bring a carbon, there is no smicha. v'chad karbano v'lo karban chaveiro. We'll say another halacha is that if I go ahead and bring a karban on behalf of my friend, there is no smicha done for that karban. V'chad karbano v'lo karban aviv. And the last karban teaches me that if I'm bringing a karban that is not mine, but rather what? The karban of my father. So right, in this case, the father passed away, the son inherits his father's karban. The son has to bring his father's karban. The son does not do smicha on that karban. Therefore, again, so just so you follow this, Rabbi Yehuda therefore learns out from Karbano that a Yoresh does not do smicha, and we learn out what? The beginning of Hektish from the end of Hektish. Just like by the end of Hektish, i.e. by smicha, a Yoresh does not do smicha, so therefore Rabbi Yehuda holds that what? A Yoresh cannot affect Temurah. Therefore, again, our Mishnah, which says Hakol Mamirin, and Hakol comes to include who? A Yoresh, does not reflect the view of Rabbi Yehuda. Or Rabbi Meir, Damar Yoresh Somich, so Rabbi Meir holds that a Yoresh does do smicha, v'hak siv karbano. What does Rabbi Meir do with that third karbano? Homi baile, the rabbos called Ba'ale Chobrin l'smicha. According to Rabbi Meir, Rabbi say that third karbano comes to teach me that if you have a jointly owned karban, look at Rashi, Ba'ale Chobrin l'smicha, shem nishtatfu bezo gima al karban echad, Karina akol chad v'chad karbano v'kulan somchin bo. Right, Rabbi Meir holds Rabbi say that halacha l'maisa, if you have partners who bring a carbon together, they just decide to partner up in a neder or a nedava, which no problem with that. Obviously, Rabbi say this doesn't work for a chatos. Right, if you have a bunch of chaverim who are sinners just like you, right, and they all say, "Hey guys, great idea. Let's go. Who's in? Right, who's in for the chatos?" They'll say, obviously that does not work. But for a neder, for a nedav, you absolutely can partner up on that. So Rabbi Meir holds that the third karbano ultimately teaches me that if I have a jointly owned karban, halacha l'maisa, we all have an obligation of smicha. Rabbi Yehuda, ba'ali chorban l'smicha lesle. Rabbi Yehuda, on the other hand, holds that a jointly owned karban, in fact, is not subject to the halachos of smicha. My time, what's the reason? The lo miyachid karban dido. Because ultimately, again, because the karban cannot be positively identified as the karban of any one individual, therefore, again, there is no obligation of smicha. So both sides. So where the Gemara is holding like this is right now. Is like right now is like this, which is hakol mamirin, hakol. But whenever you see that word hakol, hakol is coming to include something unique. So the Gemara says, what is hakol coming to include? A yoresh. A yoresh. That if the father dies and the son inherits his father's karban, that the son has the ability to affect Temurah with this inherited karban. In the marriage, just by the way, therefore the Mishnah would not reflect the view of Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda halacha l'maisa holds that a yoresh does not affect Temurah. To which the Gemara says, "Vi by sema, the olam islay." The karban over. So the other possibility is that what? Maybe Rabbi Yehuda holds that in fact a jointly owned karban is subject to Temurah. To smicha. The karban oved kochavim, the karban chaveiro michad kra nafka, di'yaiser leichad leba'ali chorban l'smicha. I will say just an alternate version. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda indeed does hold that halacha l'maisa ba'ali chorban, a jointly owned karban, is subject to the halachos of smicha, and in that case, again, Rabbi Yehuda will learn out the exemption for a karban of an akum, as well as a karban from my friend from smicha, learn them out from the same karbano. Okay, just a detail. Rabbi Meir da Amar Yoresh Meimer my taima. So I say, so now let's go back. So now we've established that the Mishnah does not reflect the view of Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda holds that a Yoresh cannot affect Temurah. Where does Rabbi Yehuda get that from? Yolif Tchilas Hekdish, from Sof Hekdish. Since Rabbi Yehuda holds that a Yoresh does not do smicha, we learn at the beginning of the Hekdish process, i.e. Temurah, from the end of the Hekdish process, i.e. smicha. Therefore, just like a Yoresh does not do smicha, so too a Yoresh does not do Temurah. But Rabbi Meir holds that a Yoresh does affect Temurah. Rabbi Meir, Damar Yoresh Meimir, my taima. Where does Rabbi Meir get this from, that a Yoresh can affect Temurah? Amr L'cha, I may say from the phrase, Im Hamer Yamir L'Rabos HaYorish. We'll say double lashon, Hamer Yamir, or Hamer Yamir. right? So Hamer Yomer double lashon teaches me that what? That halacha lamaisa, even a yoresh can affect Temurah. And therefore, again, the Yalef Amud Beis, the Yalef Sof Hektish, Mitchilas Hektish. And Rabbi Meir's worldview, we learn out Sof Hektish, the end of the Hektish process, i.e. Smicha, Mitchilas Hektish, from the beginning of the Hektish process, i.e. Temurah. Matchilas Hektish, Yoresh Meimir. Just like Hamer Yomer teaches me that halacha l'maisa, a yoresh could affect Temurah. That's the beginning of the Hektish process. I have Sof Hektish, so I learn out from here that what? That even in the end of the Hektish process, Yoresh Somech. Ultimately, again, a Yoresh could affect Smicha. So, both say, interestingly enough, you begin to see that what? That Allah Chalamaisa, the Machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir, is also a fundamental, well, it's a fundamental Machlokes and the Drashas HaPsukim. But interestingly enough, what it also has to do is the direction of the Drashas. Rabbi Yehuda, well, let's focus on Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir will say that we learn out the end of Hektish from the beginning of Hektish. Just like the end of Hektish, right? I'm sorry, the end of Hektish from the beginning of Hektish. Just like Hamer Yomer teaches me that a Yoresh can affect Temurah, so to a Yoresh is obligated in Smicha. Rabbi Yehuda learns out the beginning of Hektish from the end of Hektish. Just like a Yoresh doesn't do Smicha because of Karbano, so to a Yoresh will not do Temurah. But again, we're focused now on Rabbi Meir. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda, Hi bim Hamer Yomer ma'avile. So we'll say, what does Rabbi Yehuda do with the phrase of Hamer Yomer? Remember again, so Rabbi Meir uses Hamer Yomer to what? To teach me that halacha l'maisa, a Yoresh has the ability to affect Temurah. Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that a Yoresh does not have the ability to affect Temurah, what does he do with the double lashon of Hamer Yomer? L'rabos es ha'isha. Interestingly enough, he learns that Hamer Yomer comes to teach that what Rabbi say, even a woman has the ability to affect Temurah. Uchidisanya, we'll say, watch this, like the following brayso says, the entire section of Temurah is written in the masculine. So we'll say, because it's written in the masculine, so I would have known only that what? That a man has the ability to affect Temurah. How do I know that a woman could also affect Temurah? Talmud Lomar, V'im Hamer Yamir the Rabos as Haisha. Say for Rabbi Yehuda says, Hamer Yamir, the double lashon, teaches me that even a woman has the ability to affect Temurah. Will Rabbi Meir Isha Minale? So we'll say, according to Rabbi Meir, remember again, what does Rabbi Meir use Hamer Yamir to teach me? What does he use Hamer Yamir? Yoresh. Right? Rabbi Meir who uses Hamer Yamir to teach me that a Yoresh could affect Temurah. So where does Rabbi Meir learn out that the Torah is an equal opportunity Temurah supplier, right, or whatever, right, equal opportunity, right, Temurah for everybody. Lord Meir Isha Minale. Where does Rabbi Meir learn out that a woman can affect Temurah? Nafgilei. We'll say today is an incredible opportunity. That today is an opportunity to show that his odorus could come from Torah and not just caffeine. Right? That's mamish the avoda of today. Right? Every other day we have performance enhancing, supplements. Right? Today mamish the full his odorus has to come from Torah. Right? And each Sunday is even a greater challenge because normally there's pastries also. Right? So whatever level of excitement or pick me up I get from coffee and Danish, mamish, I have to get from Temurah. That's the avodah. Let's try it again. All right, Meir, Isha Minale, right? Where does Rabbi Meir learn out that ultimately an Isha could affect Temurah? After all, again, Rabbi Yehuda is using Hamer Yamir. Rabbi Meir is using Hamer Yamir to teach me what? That halacha l'maisa, that a Yoresh has the ability to affect Temurah. So where does Rabbi Meir learn out that an Isha has the ability to affect Temurah? Minale, Nafkale, Mevi'im. This is very interesting, Abba say. So we've seen this throughout our journeys in Shas. Mevi'im. So Abba say in the pasuk of Temurah it says Ve'im Hamer Yamir. It could have just said Ima, but it uses a what's the word? A larger form, but it's not called larger form. It's more expansive form of the word, right? Ultimately, an elongated form, right? Doesn't just say im, but rather it says v'im. So that vav is a vav hamos if it comes to include something else. Right? Meir learns out that v'im comes to include isha. So why doesn't Rabbi Yehuda use that same drasha? Rabbi Yehuda v'im lo darish. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't subscribe to that drasha of Ve'im. So the Gemara says, Ubein Rabbi Meir, Ben Rabbi Yehuda, Taima, the Rabbi Kra li Isha, Halo Rabbi Yakra, Hava Amina, Ki Avda Temurah lo Lakya. Nevertheless says, here's what's interesting. So while it is true that both Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda have different drashas, right? Rabbi Yehuda's Gena Darshan Vim Hamer Yamer comes to teach that even a woman could affect Temurah. Rabbi Meir will learn out from where? From V'im. So both say one thing is clear, which is what? Both of them have drashas that teach them that a woman gets malchus if she does Temurah, which tells me something very interesting. That both according to Rabbi Yehuda, were there no additional either phrase or letter, I would have thought that what? Havamina ki avda Temurah lo lakya. I would have thought, so I'll say what's clear is without the drasha what? If a woman were to do Temurah, she would not get malchus. There would be no violation. So is that true? So I'll say, see, essentially what you're saying is that without the supplemental drasha, according to Rabbi Yehuda of Hamer Yamer, according to Rabbi Meir of V'im, I would have said that a woman would not be in violation of a lo saseh if she would have done Temurah. I need a supplemental drasha for a woman. But why is that? Said, look at Rashi, lo lakya, tim hemira timurasa ina timurasa. So also, when we say lo lakya, she doesn't get malchus, I would have thought literally that a woman cannot affect Temurah. She cannot swap out sacrificial animals, and if she does so, the act itself is meaningless and there's no malchus. But is that true? So it's v'ham Rabbi Yehuda Amarav, v'cheitan Rabbi Shmuel, ish o isha, ki yasu mikol chata sa'adam, hish v'hakasav isha leish l'chol onshin shebatorah. I want to say in general, when it comes to lo sases, in general, men and women are equal. Right? I will say we know this in halacha, that the only time, even in halachic observance, that we find a distinction between men and women is where? By ases. Right? So by ases, mitzvah shezman grama, time by mitzvos. But by so for example, right? No one says that a woman could go ahead and eat chametz pesach. I can make a cogent argument and say a woman should eat chametz pesach. Why? Right? It's zman grama. Right? We find no concept like that. So we'll say why? Because the distinction between male and female halachic observance is only by positive commandments, not by prohibitions. By prohibitions, men and women are the same. So if that's the case, why is it? Now remember, Temurah is a lo saseh. So I don't understand. Why do I need a supplemental drasha of either Ve'im or Hamer Yamer to teach me that a woman is chayiv in Temurah? To which I'll tell you why. It's tzirich ma'odetema hanimi the onesh deshava bein beyachad bein betzibor. See, I will say in general, when do we say that men and women are equal in terms of prohibitions? That's when you have a prohibition that applies equally to the individual as well as to the tzibor. Aval harcha, when it comes to Temurah, kevan da onesh she'ino shava bakolhu. But say, interestingly enough, the concept of Temurah does not apply equally to the individual as it does to the tzibor. Disnan, ein hat tzibor v'ashutfin osin Temurah. We'll say we're going to get into this halacha a little bit later on in the Masechta, but it's actually quite interesting. The tzibor cannot affect Temurah. So we're going to see, for example, if you have a carbon that is set aside as a carbon tzibor, and someone on behalf of the tzibor comes and swaps it out for a different animal, halacha l'maisa, that act of Temurah is ineffective. So or for that matter, again, if you have jointly owned carbon and by a group of partners, and one of the partners does Temurah on behalf of the group, it does not work. Temurah is a din in the yachid, it doesn't apply to the tzibor. So the Gemara says as follows: I would have said, when are men and women the same? When it comes to lo sases, that's dafka ultimately again in a case where what? The lo saseh applies equally to the individual and to the collective. But where the lo saseh doesn't apply to the individual, or to the collective like the individual, maybe men will be chayiv and women will not. So the isha nami ki avdol lakya. Therefore, because the tzibor ultimately again can't affect Temurah, so maybe a woman is exempt as well. Kamash no, kamash on the halacha. Therefore, the Torah comes along and gives us an additional drasha to teaching that what? That women are chayavos ultimately to Temurah as well. So halacha l'maaseh, we need the extra drasha of either Hamer Yamer or Ve'im, teaching that a woman is subject to the halachos of Temurah as well. Beautiful. Katan Maushi Yamr. What's another interesting halach? What about katan? Does a katan, a minor, have the ability to affect Temurah? So what's the case? Heichi dami. Ilema b'katan shlo egila onas nedarim lo tibai lecha. So we'll say, if you're talking about, again, a katan who has not reached the age of nedarim, then I will say, now what does that mean? So if you look at Rashi, it's almost right across from Rashi. Shelo egila onas nedarim, Rashi says, kigon, dahavi pachus mi yud beis shana, dahachi amrina b'meseches nazir ish kiyafli. Matam lamar dachi matzvi. This was to this outside. So the halacha is as follows. There's a concept of a katan samach leish or a katan mufla b'nedarim, which is that you have a child. If you have a child, a child who is 12 years old in one day, or for a girl 11 years old in one day, and they understand the mechanics of nedarim. Rashi goes on. He says, "Dechevan she'adeh lahaflos l'shem mi nadar u'l'shem mi hegdish nidro neder v'ekdesho hegdish." So we'll say, so halacha l'maisa. If you have a katan that's 12 years old in one day, and he understands the mechanics of a neder, which means that what? He understands that when he makes a neder, that he's making a neder to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's creating a binding promise. He understands when he's makdish something, because remember again, hekdish and neder are in the same family. When he's makdish something, ultimately again, who he's being makdish it to, so his statement ultimately is affected. So ask the Gemara. So the Gemara says like this: So say if we're talking about a child who has not even reached the age of nedarim, or so let's say for example he's below the age of 12 years old in one day, so that's not a shaila, right? Lo tibaylecha decheva akdushe lo akdish amure meimer. So we'll say, so obviously if he can't make a neder and he can't make something hegdish, then what? Of course he cannot affect Temurah either. So where does the question come up? Ki kami baile, bekatan shigia laonis. Now we'll say first wide line. Where does the question come up? The question comes up in a situation of a katan who has reached the age of nedarim. So we'll say if you have a katan who is 12 years old and one day, so he's still a katan, but he's old enough to know, in this case again, who he's making nedarim to, and therefore again his nedarim will work, his hektish will work. Mi aminan kevan da amar mar ish ma talmud lomar ki yafli neder l'rabos mufla samach lish the kadosh kadosh u'me'akdush makdish amuri nami meimer. So we'll say, do we say that since this young boy who's 12 years old in one day is considered enough of an ish, ultimately again to affect a neder, to affect hektish, therefore what? He can also affect Temurah. O dilma kivan dalav bar onshinu b'Temurah lo matvis. Or do we say what? Since he has not reached the age where he'll be liable to punishments, right? He's not liable, right? He's not a bar onshin. Therefore, again, he cannot affect Temurah. Temurah is a lo saseh. And therefore, the only time I will say that you could affect Temurah is when? Is if you could be subject to the Chi of Malchus. A boy who's 12 years old in one day may be old enough and mature enough to make Nidarim, to affect Hekdish, but because he can't be subject to Malchus, therefore he can't affect Temurah. So imtim selomar katan avit Temurah daha asilechal onshin. So maybe he'll say, you know what? Maybe a katan who has reached the threshold of Nidarim can affect Temurah. Why? Because even though halacha lamaisa, he won't be subject to Malchus now, but what? One day he will be. One day he will be subject to halachas of Malchus. Asilechal onshin. And since he's ultimately going to be subject to onshin, that's enough ultimately to include him in the Temurah family now. However, Ovid Kochavim Mahu Shiyamir. They both say, what about a Gentile? An Ovid Kochavim. Can an Akum affect Temurah? Both say this is very important. After all, Mi Amrit, Mi Dak Dushe Makdish. Both say, remember again, an Akum has the ability to consecrate a karban. After all, the Sanya, Ish, Matam Loma Ish. They both say the pasuk by Karbano says Ish. Why does the Torah use such a generic lashon of Ish? Matam Lomar Lomar Ish Ish. L'rabos asa ovid kochavim shenodrim nedarim v'nedavos ki Yisrael. Remember again, an akum has the ability to offer up a neder and nedava just like the Yisrael. Sa'amuri nami meimir. We should say that the same way that an akum has the ability to affect sacrificial sanctity. If you can affect sacrificial sanctity, then what should you be able to do? What else? Temurah. O dilma Kevan de lo asi lechlal onshin, or do we say conversely? No. I will say, in order to go ahead and effect Temurah, you have to what? You have to be subject to the penalty of Temurah. And ultimately, an akum is not subject to the penalty of Temurah. We'll say an akum is not subject to any penalty, biblical penalty. He's not subject to laws of Torah. So we'll say, so that's the shaila. So again, you hear what's happening over here? The Gemara asked two questions. Both were left unresolved. Question number one is, what's the status of a katan? Who goes, remember, not any katan, but what age? 12 years old in one day and up. Because again, Rabbi say, such a katan, remember, has the ability to affect halachic realities. His neder is a neder. His hegdish is a hegdish. So does he have the ability to affect Temurah? Well, it depends. Do we say that in order to affect Temurah, you have to be subject to the malchus of Temurah, and he is not currently subject to the malchus of Temurah? Or do we say that since one day he will be subject to the penalty of Temurah, that's enough to allow his Temurah to be effective now? Okay, hold that thought. What about an akum? An akum definitely has the ability to create carbonic sanctity. So do we say that since he could affect carbonic sanctity, he has the ability to affect Temurah as well? Or do we say, but even though he has the ability to affect carbonic sanctity, he's not subject to malchus if he affects Temurah? Because he's not subject to malchus, therefore what? Maybe halacha l'maisa, because he's not subject to malchus, maybe therefore he should not go ahead and be able to affect Temurah. So we'll say, those are the two questions the Gemara asked. Now let's proceed to answer them. Amir Rava, Tashma. We'll say, we'll go for a few more moments. Tashma, Tisanya, Kadshe, Ovdei Kochavim. We'll say, if an akum makes something hektish, so what's the halacha? Lo nanin. Ideally, you are not permitted to get hana from it. Velo mo'alin. But I will say, if you did get hana from it, what's the halacha? You are not subject to mi'ilah, interestingly enough. Vein chayavin alein. Furthermore, again, you're not chayiv for the carbon of an akum, mishum pigul, nosar, and tameh. Remember again, pigul means Kohen has thoughts, right, during the avoda to consume the carbon outside of the permitted window. Nosar means you leave it over past the permitted time, and tameh means you somehow interacted with this carbon in a state of tumah. So if you did any of these things to the carbon of an akum, you are not chayiv. Furthermore, einos temurah. There is no temurah that is affected with the carbon of an akum. Vein mevin alein nesachim. So we'll say, as we're going to see what this actually means is, whereas Yisrael could bring nesachim as a standalone offering. Remember again, nesachim are wine libations. So Yisrael could offer up even standalone nesachim. An akum cannot. Aval karbano ta'un nesachim. But ultimately, again, his carbon is accompanied by nesachim. Divrei Rabbi Shimon. These are the words of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yossi is chok, and Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi, Bikulan ani roa lahachmir. Rabbi Yossi says, I think ultimately, again, you should be machmir in all of these cases. In all of these cases, to which what Rabbi Yossi is saying is, I think you should be machmir with the carbon of an akum in all of these different areas, right? Pigul, nosar, tameh, all of these things. Temurah, b'medra. When is this? So supposed to, this is going back on the first min Rabbi Shimon. When is Rabbi Shimon Mekel with all of these aspects of the carbon of an akum? B'kar shem mizbeach. That's talking about when the akum mamish is pledging a carbon to be offered up on the mizbeach. Ava b'kar shem bedek habayis. But halacha l'maisa, if the akum pledged something to the bedek habayis, which Abosai means not physical sanctity, but what? Financial sanctity, then what? Mo'alin bahen. Halacha l'maisa is subject to milah. Abosai, take a look at Rashi for just a moment. Ava b'kar bedek habayis. It's in the wide lines of Rashi, probably about 10 lines in. So the Gemara is making this interesting distinction over here between Kadshe Mizbeach, Kadshe Bedek Habayis. Katani Miha. So we'll say, but again, for our purposes, what's the most important part of this brayso? Katani Miha, Ein Osin Temurah. Now we'll say the most important part of this brayso for us is what? The brayso explicitly says that if the akum pledges a carbon, what's that lacha? Ein osin mehen temurah. You do not create temurah as a result, ultimately, again, of this akum's carbon. V'ray bar Chama behekdish avik Chama is kapra avik Chama al kain barley. So you know what? Actually, we'll stop over here for today. We'll stop with the V'ray bar Chama. We'll pick up with this tomorrow. So again, just to orient ourselves where we left off, we left off with two fundamental questions. Question number one was, what is the status of a carbon of a katan? Right? If a katan goes ahead and pledges a carbon, which works, does he have the ability to affect Temurah? That we didn't resolve. What about an akum? Right? An akum certainly has the ability to go ahead and offer up a carbon. Can he go ahead and affect Temurah? So both say, so remember, what are the two tzadim? On one hand, we can say, since he has the ability to create carbonic sanctity, he has to have the ability to go ahead and what? To make a Temurah. What's the flip side argument? Since he's not subject to onkshin, to punishment, maybe we should be able to affect Temurah. Shabbos says, so where we're ending off over here is, the Brisa speaks about the sanctity of the carbon of an akum, and the Brisa says explicitly that what? Ein osin mehen Temurah, which explains to explicitly saying that halacha l'maisa, if an akum pledges a carbon, the akum cannot affect Temurah with that carbon. How we use that price, or go with that price, and Mir Tashan to be continued tomorrow. Shkach, we'll say. So obviously, not everybody subscribed to that drasha. And remember again, that carbano was by smicha. So you want to say the drasha should be that whoever yaliv tchilas hakdish misof hakdish. Okay, not everybody holds that drasha.